October talk. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Carlos Raimundo. Carlos is almost a neighbour of mine. I'm from the northern beaches of Sydney, and just a few hundred beaches up from mine is where Carlos lives. Anyway, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Carlos. Thank you very much for presenting tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you. And I have a few conversations with Stephen and heard a little bit of the history of Sydney Atheist. So today we have an interesting topic. The topic is the God of deception. And but we are not going to talk about God, actually. And we are here in Sydney Atheist, but we are not going to talk about atheism. But we are going to talk is about how the ideologies form, especially from a neuroscience point of view. I'm originally a medical doctor from Argentina. I did psychiatry, psychotherapy, but my passion is neuroscience. So everything that I do, I go into brain study. So this is my default. So we're going to talk about the brain today and about how ideologies form. And I have two aims. One is to see if we can touch on why, when we talk about ideology or religion, they create so much division. Animosities among friends, among families, among countries. And the biggest fights of the world were around ideology and religion. But instead of talking about sociologically or psychologically, we're going to touch on what happened in the brain. That this, in my assumption, may help us to see, can we do something about it? And this is the idea, and so what? And the other one is what to do when what holds me in my ideology or religion doesn't hold me anymore. In a moment of deception, in the moment of pain, in a moment of suffering, where to go? So these are the 2 points that I'm going to end at the end. To start with, about the brain, do you know what is the emotion of the brain that stays the least in our mind? Any idea? What emotion is the one that sleeps like Teflon, like this? Do you know why? Which one?
Happy.
Happiness, gratitude. Gratitude is the emotion that sleeps like Teflon. And there is a sign that said, fear sticks like Velcro, but satisfaction and gratitude sleep like Teflon. So this part of the brain that the satisfaction and gratitude is called the limbic part of the brain, the emotional brain, the middle of the brain. And sometimes, and to be able to go there, it has to be intentional. Doesn't come automatically. We need to go there by choice. So I'd like to start tonight with gratitude. What I'd like for you to do is a neurophysiological approach. And if for you to pause for a second, if you like to close your eyes or not, it doesn't matter, and look at my language. Don't think about something that you are grateful for, because if you do that, that comes from the frontal lobe of the brain, and it's a rational thing. What I'd like to invite you is to pause there, relax your shoulders, and let it come from within, and to say, it's one thing that I'm grateful for. Let it come. Don't think. It's one thing that I'm grateful for. Let it come. And that action is an action that when we do it as an exercise, relaxes the soul, relaxes the brain, and allowed us, when we do that, to think more clearly. So I suggest you to be able to think of that intentionally, because it will not come automatically. When you wake up in the morning to say, is anything I'm grateful for? We have when we work in corporate, we have an exercise that's called 1, 2, 3. 1 minute in the morning that I pause and said, what I'm grateful for, what is my intention for today? At lunch, 2 minutes. It's not much. You pause. And you pause and said, how was my morning? It's likely that you totally forgot what you were grateful for and your intention. So these 2 minutes allows us to pick it up and to say, to realign the day. And especially at night. 3 minutes at night to pause and say, what was I grateful for today? And anything that works well, that was fantastic. And any fears I have, anything didn't work well, to say, I can do that tomorrow. So these are little things that there are from science. So tonight we are going to talk about things, a lot of things that come from science. Another thing that come just for studies of culture and ideology. What I'd like to invite you, so I was talking before about the limbic system, that is the emotional brain. But we are here, especially in an atheist society or group, we have a lot of brain, a lot of frontal lobe activity. So what I'd like to invite you, we are here or you are here, it's just for you to know, we also presented this by Zoom. There are other people on the other side looking at us. So welcome to everybody. I'd like for you to suspend judgment. Something very hard to do. Because the brain automatically, when I'm listening to something, I'm listening. What is he saying, not saying? He's omitting this. Where does he come from? And what I like to invite you, and this is also not easy to do, at least for me, is to suspend judgment. Whatever I will say today is perfect. It's not. It's not. But for you, meanwhile I'm talking, I said, Carlos is right. Chuku, 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 chuku. But then in your minds are taking note. But don't judge as I am talking. And at the end, we are going to have some comments, and there you can drill me. You can go into that. Okay? So this is the idea. One is gratitude and suspend judgment. Two things that don't come to the brain automatically. It has to be intentional. And when we're talking about the brain, we're talking about consciousness. And the interesting thing with consciousness is that nobody knows what consciousness is. So we are alive here, because we are here, we are alive, and we are conscious, because we are thinking, we are talking. And interesting, nobody knows what life is. Nobody knows what consciousness is. Nobody knows what gravity is. So it's very interesting things that there are our life, but we still don't know. And I don't call it mysteries because I don't like that word. We don't know. I don't believe in mysteries. I know that there are many things that we don't know. But consciousness is what it keeps us alive. And consciousness for us is the basic element of consciousness is our relationship to what? To suffering. So, when I was little, I hated to think, like to sit down? Yeah, come here. When I was little, I hated to think that we descended from monkeys. And then I realized that we don't say from monkeys, but from chimpanzees. But at that time, from monkeys. I said, oh, how can I descend from monkeys? When I was studying neuroscience, then I realized that I was not like a monkey. We are like an amoeba, one cell. We are all like an amoeba. And this is the essence of consciousness. An amoeba opens up when there is pleasure, where there is food, where there is warm, where there is an area pro-life, and close up when there is fear. We all are like that. The question is, the only difference is that when we are especially in suffering, our brain goes to something that animals looks like cannot do. We go to ask why. And this is the essence of consciousness, in not in animals, but in people. The essence of why. Why we do that? Because we can. And the mind goes, I'm going to go to the brain very soon, the mind goes automatically into why. But we cannot stay in the why long enough to wait for an answer. The brain needs to create an answer immediately. So the why has to be answered because the brain needs certainty. And this is the essence of the brain. Because the brain looks more for certainty than for survival. We need to know. There is for example, we have, and why is the difference between humans and animals? There is a gazelle who is by the water. There is a drought in that place, and we're talking about a long time ago. And the gazelle is with a little baby, and a lion is coming out prying and gets the little gazelle and kills it. The mother gazelle is in despair for a few minutes, maybe for hours, and after that they continue their life as if nothing happened, because they cannot ask why. The same night, in that big drought on that place, a mother, a hunter-gatherer mother, is going out with a little girl to the water.
We're about to do the second call.
Second call. Okay, good. So we're going to stop for 1 second because there is a call now for a raffle, and it will be very invasive. So think about what a mother who lost a gazelle that was killed by a lion will do. So we are going to talk about it very soon. Okay? Come on. So start thinking. What do you think that a mother that lost the beautiful daughter, the only daughter, the mother who lost the only daughter by eaten by a wild animal will do? What could be her questions? Think about it. And we are waiting for the raffle. It's a very invasive. Do you have a number? Do you have any raffle number? No.
You have to buy into the pub raffle.
Steve's got his own raffle.
We've got our own raffle tonight.
So before I continue, I'd really like to ask you to start thinking about it, because I'd like to have questions at the end. And or if there is something I say that you don't understand me because of my accent or something like this, please interrupt me. I say, Carlos, can you repeat that again? And it will be very happy for me to do that. And this is not happening.
Carlos, whilst we're waiting, would you like to tell us a little about your history from Argentina?
Yes, so I was born in Argentina and been here for more than 40 years now. No, 40 years. And why I'm in Australia is because I never liked Argentina. Since I was little, I didn't like the country, the corruption. And there was a moment that I couldn't live there anymore emotionally. My therapist said to me, Carlos, what are you going to do here? If you continue here in Argentina, you are going to end in jail, in prison, or in a mental hospital. So you had to go. So Australia was an opportunity. My sister was living here, and I felt that I lived in the exile for 36 years until I came to Australia. So Australia for me was coming home. And so thank you to the Australians for welcoming me. And it was an amazing thing. So I did medicine and did psychiatry, but in Australia I specialized in psychotherapy. And I work all my life, and we're working internationally. I'd like to introduce to Melanie, that is there. Melanie is my daughter, and she's the owner of the company now that I pass it on to her. She's my boss, and sometimes she's tough. So if you can have a word with her to be nicer to me, I will appreciate. It will be nice. And what I like to say too is that Melanie, a lot of what I'm going to share tonight is written in a book that we just published. So they was published, I think, after I committed to this meeting. So if you like to, the book we have there for sale, and Melanie is a co-author. So a lot of the things we are sharing tonight is here. But also, I'm writing another book that is called The God We Outgrew. And the book is still in the last draft of the book. So if you buy the book, you are going also to get, I will going to send you, if you're interested, the draft of that book. That is a lot of my talk tonight is about that book, and I will, because it's a draft, before going to publishing, I would like to hear from other people what they think. So I will value feedback. Before we continue with all this noise, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me?
The things that you've been talking about, I mean, they've been around since, say, the hippie days, the 60s and 70s, but I haven't seen any sort of scientific investigation or...
About what?
About things like, about teaching yourself about gratitude and asking why. Have there been...
Oh, it's a lot written. Yes, it's a lot written about that.
Have these been done, peer reviewed?
Absolutely.
So they're based on
this is science.
Right.
This is science. Even Richard Dawkins, in his book The Selfish Gene, he talks about how nature moves up to a selfish nature. And then he says, and I use his sign very often, that our nature is towards selfishness. And he's an ethologist, he's a biologist, so he explained it much better than I do. But then he said, we can move into altruism. That is the frontal lobe of the brain. But he says, this cannot happen naturally. And he said, literally, in his book he says, don't wait for nature to help you. It has to be done as a choice. And this is Richard Dawkins, written many, many years ago. But all of that, everything I'm presenting to you is, especially about the brain, it has been studied a lot. Okay, I'll continue. Any ideas about the mother with a little girl? It's a drought, big drought. They go to the water, and the little baby is eaten by a lion. What happened with this mother? The gazelle forgets very, very soon. What happened with the mother? What do I say the difference between animals and people? What is the difference? The capacity to why. So she started wondering why. But we cannot stay with an open why. We need an answer. And then suddenly it happened that next day rains. So they start connecting. Death, life, and water, rain. So this is the origin of superstition. There's the connection that people can start doing because the brain cannot hold uncertainty. I'd like to invite you to read a book. It's a shame that it's written by Chileans. There is a tension between Chileans and this when it's Chilean. So this is a joke. Two Chilean professors from Harvard. I suggest you to read the book. It's an old book, fantastic book. And it's called The Tree of Knowledge, Maturana and Varela. And they talk about our incapacity to be able to hold, to be uncertain. So we look for certainty. And this is what the brain does. And the brain looks more for things that gives us comfort, not truth. It's very interesting to see that we are here in an atheist society. We are looking for truth or not? Yes. Truth. And when we are looking at Richard Dawkins, he's talking about truth the whole time. But the brain doesn't look for truth. The brain looks first for comfort. The brain looks for something that gives me peace of mind. And there is a wonderful interview that I suggest you to watch. I don't know if you watch it. That is Richard Dawkins with Ayaan Hirsi. Have you seen the interview? A debate? Fantastic. Ayaan Hirsi was a colleague of Richard Dawkins and the team with other people in the new atheist movement, walking around the whole world preaching, the evangelicals of atheism about atheism. Ayaan was an ex-Muslim. I don't know from which part of the country she is, and she was talking about atheism all around the world. And then suddenly she became a Christian. And there is a debate between her and Ayaan. Beautiful debate, because they know each other very much. The hug they give to each other when they start is touching. And she said to him, "You are being my mentor." There is love between them two. And then she explained one thing. In a moment of tension, in a moment that I didn't know who I was, these are my words, she said it better, in a moment that I didn't know who I was, in moments of desolation and lost. And he looked at Richard and said, "Richard, when I was preaching, I was teaching, they didn't give me any peace. So I found it in Christianity." This is a debate, so it's not a conversation between two people, so it has to have a little bit of attention. And when Richard Dawkins loves her, look at her, and he commit, I think I couldn't say a mistake because again it's a debate, but she's telling him, I needed something for my soul that I couldn't find in what we were teaching all around the world. And the story of Christianity gave me peace. And now I went to therapy and said, what you need is spirituality. And I found it in Christianity. Richard Dawkins looked at her like this. And instead of saying to her, "Wow, can you tell me more about it?" I kept saying, "What happened in you?" He used a word that for me is interesting. He says, "but." So when you use the word "but," not "and," you are canceling what the person is saying. And I suggest you to watch that interview. Just put Dawkins, Ayaan, and it will come up in the YouTube. And instead of saying, "Can you tell me more about it? What happened that you moved from being together in this conversation, you went into Christianity?" I said, "Do you believe?" Look at what he said. "Do you believe in what the Bible says? Can you believe what the pastor of the church, or what is it called in England? We don't use that word here. I forgot. The pastor of the church is talking about that the wine becomes the blood of Christ and this and that. Do you believe? For goodness sake, he said to her, do you believe that? Do you know what she says? I choose to believe. Wow. Why? She's talking about the brain. When the brain is in desolation, it's not looking for truth. It's looking for comfort. And it's very interesting that in any one of us, when we are in that moment, when ourselves, from a bad news about any illness, but especially when somebody in the family is suffering death or illness, the brain will need for comfort. And this is the brain. So how that is formed? How can we talk about these two parts of the brain? Damasio is the one who gives a little bit of an answer. Damasio is a Portuguese American trained neuroscientist. Fantastic to read, very easy to read. And he says that the brain is like an orchestra that is playing the whole time. Suddenly, one musician from the orchestra stand up and start conducting the orchestra. With the feeling is, I am the conductor of the opera, of the orchestra. But in reality, he emerged or she emerged from the orchestra. So he's totally biased. In when we said, I know, we don't know. So one of the biggest difficulties for the brain is to accept uncertainty. So this story about the brain in relation with the orchestra is fantastic. So every time that we said, I know that, and we try to challenge that, this is arrogance. Because in reality, what we are doing is working in our brain what is called a sense of knowledge, a sense of knowing. You like science. Burton and Gazzaniga are two neuroscientists that says that when the brain is happy, when we are in a relaxed field, when things are going well, everything is okay. We can think about ideologies and this and that, and it's okay. And we have what is called a sense of shalom. Shalom or salem in Arabic doesn't mean peace. It means at peace. I'm okay. If I have a problem, I will face and it's okay. But there is a moment when the limbic system shrinks and is in pain, is not knowing, lack of uncertainty, and especially with a sense of failure, the brain cannot hold it. And then that information goes to the frontal lobe of the brain, and the frontal lobe of the brain blocks it. Bang! It blocks that like this and creates a story. And that story is called a cognitive bias. That is called a sense of knowing. Very hard to change because it's part of our ego. And we don't know that we don't know. So because we cannot accept that. Do you follow me? Yeah? You follow with me? So the line of thought in how the neuroscience tells us that... Sorry?
Just like theorizing and believing and all that. I don't think any of that's about neuroscience at all.
No, this is what I'm here for. Not to share with you what the brain is, because we are going to have a point here.
I feel like I'm being preached about a religion, like gratitude. It looks like, it sounds like that you're supposed to be grateful to someone. You didn't explain what do you feel grateful?
Can you stay with
What do
me?
you feel grateful?
Can you start? Oh, that's very interesting. I'm going there very soon. The comment from a participant is that when I use the word gratitude, the assumption is that I need to be grateful to something. We are going to there very soon. Okay, very, very soon. And this is the work of Tanya Luhrmann, who was an anthropologist that worked in that level. Thank you for that, because that gave me this point. Now, in the history of ideology, I use something that is called spiral dynamics. I have some handouts here that I'm going to share with you if you wanted. That is a line of what I'm talking tonight. So spiral dynamics looks at the history of humanity since Homo sapiens, and they start in memes. So the original meme is they call beige. They have colors, doesn't have anything to do with anything. Is the beige meme that is the more, is even before the hunter-gatherers. Then is the purple level that is around 50 to 10,000 years ago. Would you like to share it? Yep. Yeah, sure. So the purple levels are around 50 to 50,000 years to 10,000 years ago. That is the origin of superstition. Remember that I told you about the mother with the gazelle and the gazelle? At that time, the superstition starts, and is the time where we start assuming that there is other forces. We are giving to the moon, to the storms, an anthropological force. This is where the moon starts talking to us. This is why the storm has a meaning. For a reason is the storm. Then we have to the red level that is around, this is in the Bronze Age, around 10,000 years to 3,000 years. And in that time, the tribes started forming, and it's called red, is a lot of aggression. They're trying to protect the tribes until they create the tribes and then become who is the blue level of the blue meme. The blue meme is around the Iron Age, is where all the religions around the world started forming. And there is a characteristic. There is usually a high power and a sacred book. So in Australia, that we are opposed or around a Christian, Jewish Christian background, is this: the high power is a God, and the book is the Torah and the Bible. That is the origin of the blue level. The fantastic thing here is to know that these levels are within our history. It's like a palimpsest. And that word means that you will have a painting, and you have a painting and you continue painting over and over. So all of us has within us this meme historically. And so we all have this blue level that is the origin of religions. And in that time, until the Renaissance, is the time where Tanya Luhrmann talks about, said when we project to nature and to others a sense of anthropological force. I started talking to the gods. But it's not only that. The gods talk back to me. Wow. So this is what the person was saying about gratitude. We cannot, at that time, we cannot hold the concept of, I feel grateful because I'm grateful. It's because I'm grateful. But the brain, and historically, I need to put a source of gratitude. This is an anthropological meme, an anthropological force. The word meme was coined by Richard Dawkins, by the way. So it's talking about the areas. But then we have what is called where we are now, that is the orange meme. That is from the Renaissance. What is the origin of science. When now we are not going anymore to superstition and to forces to be able to find the sources of why we are sick. We go to the doctor. We don't go to a healer. We go to the doctor, we go to the hospital, because science is taking over. And when we are, especially in the atheist movement, what is it? Listen, forget about this nonsense of praying to something that doesn't exist. It's not true. We need to go to what is true. It is science. And we are there looking for science. But remember that I mentioned that the different levels are within us. We still go back to the blue and to the red. So when we go and we want to establish this is what we think, and these are the points that we are thinking, this is blue. And when we get angry about someone else presenting a different ideology, we go to red, because it's within us. So, when Richard Dawkins said to a young, why? Can you see that this is a lie? This is a lie. He's putting his point of view, so he's projecting into her a blue level. He couldn't stay with the ambiguity that she was presenting. This is what is very hard in ideology, to have conversations for people who have a different point of view. And that has a response in the brain. Sorry, got neuroscience again. And this is, I have a little bit of that in this book, but also it's a book chapter that I wrote that talks about two parts of the brain, very important. One is called the insula, and the other one is called the precuneus. The insula is a part of the brain that doesn't exist when we are born. And it's a very important part of the brain that is the cortical insula, is in the cortex, but not neocortex. And it's the one who allows me to see that I'm standing up. It tells me that I'm hungry. It gives me a sense of who I am and where I am. Very, very important. Very, very important part of the brain. We are alive because the insula is a radar that allows us to be alive. But part of the insula is our ability to detect anything that is infectious to us. So if we are eating and we see a cockroach, or we go to a kitchen, we see a cockroach, and say, oh, yuck. When we see vomit, when we see poo, or something like that, we respond with disgust. Disgust comes from the insula. And this is a work that has been researched very much. So all of this is science. But you know what the interesting thing is? That the same thing of yuck that I feel for an infection is the same thing that happened morally. So the insula builds the knowledge of what is right and wrong from the culture. So each one of us has an insula that has been created by the culture that we live in. So when we have in some religions that they want to be purity, very blue level of thinking, purity, and their daughter is planning to have a relationship with somebody with not the same religion, the father feels that this is like an infection to the religion. What does he do? So the insula is connected to the amygdala. The amygdala is the one who is permanently in alert of what is a threat. And act. Act through what? through anger, through violence, and kills the daughter, what is called an honor killing. That action goes then to the frontal lobe of the brain. Remember the sense of knowing? Put it all together. The sense of knowing said, I did right. And never in their life they will have remorse. This is because of the insula. So in that case, the origin of all the discussions, we have a family and somebody is marrying or visiting somebody with a different ideology, and we feel it inside us. This is the insula that makes us to react into that. And how we react? Division. So why we are saying this? Why we are saying this? Because we live in a fractured world. And we have not a good level of tolerance. Not because of just society or psychology, because our brain is telling us that. Because in the spiral dynamics, if you read that more, and there is a lot of material, and in my book I talk about that, we are moving into a new level of thinking that is called yellow level, in which it looks like, we're not there yet, so it looks like that in the yellow level of thinking, tolerance comes there. When Richard Dawkins talked to Ayan, and Ayan said, I become a Christian, instead of him saying, but what? Boom, 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 boom. That is blue level. He could go to yellow. And I said, really? Can you tell me more about it? Very interesting. But we are not there yet. So it's very hard. So whatever I'm saying tonight, if you feel that react to you with doing this or that, this is your insula that responds in that way. So it's very important for us to know that we are not there yet, but we are getting there. And where to start? Start with myself. To start knowing that I can learn about tolerance. It's not difficult to do. It's at the edge of the impossible. But our brain, remember putting together? It goes to the why and the knowledge and certainty. So when somebody presents something that is different, it makes me shrink. It's like when somebody is in a sexual matter and they have, for example, a sexual activity that is different to their parameters, they say, oh, yuck. They say that word. They say that word, yuck. Where does it come from? From the insula. But there is another part of the brain. And this is science. Okay? This is another part of the brain that is called the precuneus. Very little known about that part of the brain. It's a part of the brain that is like a soft whisper in the soul. But it's hard to listen because the insula is very loud. Everything that is different to my ideology, the amygdala comes like this and shouts. So if I'm aware of that, I can say, no, calm down, breathe in, relax, and through contemplation, through reflection, the precuneus start talking to us. Doesn't talk to us, it's a metaphor. And within us, it looks like that the precuneus is a life compass. That if we listen to that, allows us to know what is right and wrong, not culturally. It's pro-life. It's about life. This is what Richard Dawkins is talking about, I assume, when he's talking about intentionally. We can allow this force in us to make us more humane. Beautiful. So there is hope. And why the precuneus is important? The title of the chat is The God of Deception. And I didn't say that before, But you are not talking to me. You're talking to the image you have of me. We are not looking at nature or what nature is. The brain creates that picture. I don't know if the optometrist study a lot about that. I don't know. We have an optometrist here. No? For example, we all have a black spot. Is it called black spot?
Blind spot.
Blind spot. Now, can you explain what a blind spot is?
We all have a blind spot, and because we've got two eyes, we don't notice our blind spot. But the blind spot is so we have a lot of, in our retina, we transmit information that we see to the brain. We also need to have a blood supply to the eye, and all of these nerves and blood vessels go through this one place. And it doesn't have a retina, it doesn't have any photoreceptors, so it's actually blind. And you can identify your blind spot if you close one eye and you move your finger around. When you've had an eye test, you've probably been tested for your blind spot. And it's amazing that there is a blind spot. And our politicians have a very large blind spot.
But the point with the blind spot is that nobody sees with a black hole in front of us. The brain creates that hole, and we don't know. So this is what it is. So when we say that God had failed me, or life has failed me, I like to say God cannot fail you. And I'm talking about the existence or non-existence of God. Life cannot fail you. What has failed you is what you created to support you. Remember that I said that the brain looks more for what? Comfort, certainty, and comfort more than truth. So we all create a picture that contains us and makes us feel right, makes us feel contained into that. It's not truth, it's the containment. Just tell a person who may be a woman or a man in a relationship with a highly physical or mental or verbal abuse. And the person says, but I'm still there because I love him, or he's not so bad, and this and that. The person has created a story about an abuser. This is not true, but that story contains the person. There is a moment that the stories we have, like a Jan story, like C.S. Lewis, who was a professor of Cambridge, I think, and became a Christian. Who's the name of the Cat Stevens? Cat Stevens, after a tragic situation that he suffered, he became a Muslim. They were not looking for truth. And then we have the other story. You have the story of, what's the name? Dan Baker. Dan Baker was one of the biggest preachers in the US. And then he became an atheist. Because there is a moment that in my life, what contains me doesn't contain me anymore. What is the message of tonight? We have inside us a precuneus. That if you are in that moment of your life that you feel that everything collapses, it's okay. We have what it takes to be able to confront us. Why do I know that? Because I'm alive. If I'm alive, it's because whatever resources I have that are still there. And if I listen to the precuneus, I will be able to find solution in that moment. So if I have a God has deceived me, hasn't deceived you. Life cannot deceive you. A friend cannot deceive you. Your family cannot deceive you. What deceives us is the picture that we created of that person. This is very Buddhist, on the other hand. I know nothing about Buddhism. No? The only thing I know very little. But the good message is, wherever you are in life, especially in the difficult moments of life, when you don't know what to do, try to know, I can stay longer in uncertainty. I can stay there. And the whisper of the soul will give me a way. And if too hard, the limbic system will need companionship. Could be a container, and this is where a friend comes. A friendship. The possibility to be with someone. And sometimes is necessary a professional help. So, finishing tonight. When we are looking here about the existence or existence of God, I think it will become the time that this is a very entertaining conversation. Very entertaining. I love it. Going to debate, Richard Dawkins and creationists or that or not, love it. Useless, because nobody will change the idea. The time, I think, is coming when we may be able to be more open to ask the person with a totally different ideology, how are you? Why are you like this? Can you tell me more? And in that case, we're going to have a better communication. But especially, I'm a psychotherapist, and Melanie is working with youth, and especially with young people who self-harm. And very often, she is facing young people who are at the edge of suicide, helping them to, don't go there, it's okay. And what is she stimulating? The precuneus of that person. The life is within you, is within us. And in that moment, that voice is going to guide us to a story that will help us to contain us. I don't have time to talk more about myth and about logos. There is a little bit in my handouts. But the idea tonight is two. We live in a fragmented life. And we live in a place that we laugh at others because things differently to us. This is ego. We need to find a way to learn to go to a space of, I don't know. Can you tell me more? Is it hard to go there? It's not hard. It's at the edge of the impossible. But I believe that if we dare to go to that place and put my ego a little bit down, I think we may be able to create a better society. We may be able to do that. And secondly, if you are in a moment of despair, desolation, that life treats you in that way, think of this. You're okay. And you have what it takes to be able to face it and to do it. Only if you allow yourself to start going to certainty, you go to doubt. And more than doubt, wonder. Where I'm going to be moved in that place. I'm not talking about here to any exterior or external force. It's within us. This is science. So tonight, this is what I want to share, and I said it again. A voice for what is breaking families and friendships, to be able to see, can we do better? And secondly, especially for people who are facing hard moments in life, to pause and to say, you have what it takes. Stay there. And this is the message of one of the messages of the book. If we allowed our feelings to notice what we feel and to name it, is the first step for us to achieve a good life. So this is what I wanted to share with you tonight. And again, it's not about God, it's not about atheism, it's about life. And I think it's a good voice for us to be able to enjoy life better. So I'd like to see if there is any questions and comments from here and also from the Zoom. Is there any questions, Mel? Not yet. So, questions.